Hi, and welcome to this developer commentary for Unsafe Chapter 2. This is a game I developed a couple of weeks back, and today I'm going to go through just exactly what my thoughts were with each of these decisions that I made, and exactly what the game ended up being. A quick disclaimer before we start the game. I am myself a gay man, though this is not autobiographical. This entire game is not based on something that I've experienced. It is simply based on things that I've read and basically what the gay experience is for other people. So, with that being said, let's start the game. So, you can't hear it now, but there's a sound of a car crash, a relatively bad one. This is how I actually started the entire game. Um, Before I made any other, so it says, "What happened? Did we crash? Wait, where am I? What's going on?" So before I made any other decisions within the game, that was actually one of the very first things I did. I put in a car crash at the beginning because I thought that would be cool, and basically the entire story sort of revolved around that. So here we have our main character. You'll notice he actually doesn't have a name. I never gave him a name. It never came up in the game. So let's call him Mike, for lack of a better name. So this is Mike, and he wakes up, or he's sort of placed back at school after whatever happened, and he now has to sort of figure out exactly what's going on. So this first level, you'll see that every door, if we open it up, this door is boarded up. Every door is boarded up, so you can't enter anywhere. I placed these books at the very beginning of the game to give the game some structure and to give the player some sense of what exactly is going on. So the first one here, this is written by a friend of mine, not literally but figuratively or within the story world. Silas Amti. So, wandering spirit. What is the essence of a person, and why would it stay behind once the life has been drained from the body? Well, one theory suggests that spirits were wronged, that spirits who were wronged in life hold on to this resentment in order to be able to enact revenge upon the living that caused them this harm. So this suggests that he died and is in fact now a ghost. You can actually have him talk about the lockers. I never thought I'd see this place again, for instance. This becomes a major point later, but for now it's just seeing these lockers makes me feel strange. So use E to interact. Here we have another book. This is actually by my roommate. Theory of the Brain. In the wake of an accident, the brain creates coping mechanisms, ways of shielding the psyche from terrible things that any one person is experiencing. Very little is known about these mechanisms, as the person usually won't survive the accident, but they are believed to be very immersive. So this is basically me saying he could be in a coma right now. Well, the story, not me. So this door is locked. So this entire scene with all the boarded doors is actually a bit of a tutorial. So we're just going to go back here and pick up a key. So this key, if you just go in and say pick it up, you can now see we've picked up a key. It's if you press the I button. So this entire part is really just to introduce people to the sort of the core mechanic of the game, how every individual puzzle is going to work in the game. So we just walked past a final book here, so let's just read that. So this is by my brother, Sleepwalking. The phenomenon of sleepwalking is a condition where the sufferer will wander off while unconscious. Sometimes the sleeper will wake up in places well known to them, unsure of what happened and where they are. So another theory on what could have happened. He could have just sleepwalked towards the school. Nobody knows. Not even me. I think that's an important distinction to make here. This is really up to the person playing how they feel, what they feel happened. So if you go to the office, it's locked, but if you open the inventory, you can unlock it. So here we have the first sort of scene that isn't that hallway. And here, I very consciously placed a book right here that sort of introduces you to the story. A couple of Let's Players have been kind enough to make a Let's Play of this game, and some have laughed at this, and I get why. It's a bit abrupt that what happens now. So, Pray the Gay Away. A pamphlet for Shaky Pine's conversion center. No one is born homosexual. Whether these urges are placed by the devil or by his peers, no man is born homosexual. At Shaky Pines, we take in the lamb that have succumbed to these urges and steer them back on the path to God. So again, haven't talked about homosexuality up until now, and then boom, there it is. I actually don't know if the actual centers that rehabilitate gay people are called conversion centers, but I know that the process is called conversion therapy, and is barbaric to say the least. This is also where you get your first mention of Daniel. Daniel is going to be a major character later. If you look at these chairs, it says, Daniel and I sat here often, awaiting punishment. Sort of insinuating that our main character may not have been a model student. So, if we move on, we have our first puzzle, or puzzle-ish element. This is a code puzzle. There are 2 of these in the game, and there's a bit of a fun story around this puzzle. I made the code puzzle that you'll see later, which is a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 code. But I needed to reuse that particular puzzle as many times as I could. This particular project was made over a very short amount of time, and the best way that you can beef up any one project is by reusing as many assets as you can. So, as you can see, when you go through this particular puzzle, you get these symbols. This is actually a font I made. So I went to something called FontStruct, which is a great site if you ever want to make a font, and chose the numbers 0 through 9, and then gave each of them their own symbol. So like the puzzle that's going to come later, where it's just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or what have you, this is actually the same, but just with a different font. So, yeah. I love making fonts, I'm just not very good at it. So, let's move on. So now, as you move back into the hallway, you'll see something has changed. Most of the doors aren't boarded up yet. You can go into the biology classroom. This particular puzzle was a bit of a bummer for me, I'd be honest, because I should have made the solution different than what I did. But I can get into that once the solution actually presents itself. So let's move on and see if we can go into the library. I'm just going to show you sort of the end game first. Here at the boys' bathroom, you can see there is a big lock on the door. And if you open it up, you can actually, as with the computer before it, you can go in and you can actually type in that particular solution. So you'll see you can't do anything with the girls' bathroom. I maybe should have done something there, but too late. So we go into the library. Here you have a lot of books, not surprising, and a lot of these pickups. So we'll pick up, that was the key for the locker that I talked about earlier. And here we have another book. So this is another one from the Shaky Pines Conversion Center. So it says, shuck it out of your system. In some extreme cases, where the devil has been allowed to fester upon the soul of a man for especially long, we find that electronic shock therapy works. The shock resets the system and completely removes the homosexual urges from a man. This is actually something that has been done for a while, like dating back to the 40s and 30s. Electroshock therapy, it ostensibly resets the brain, so it would remove the homosexual urges as it would remove the urges to eat and sleep and be anything other than a drooling vegetable. So yeah, it's still in fact actually these conversion therapy centers usually use this particular system to rehabilitate the homosexual, which is awful to say the least. Okay, so we have some batteries here that we can pick up. I'll show you where to use those later. And then we have the another book. So, Not Born But Bred, a pamphlet for Shaky Pines Conversion Center. Homosexuality is the work of the devil. It is just one of the many ways that he twists the mind of the young and perverts the psyche of the old. However, the devil can be exorcised. At Shaky Pines, we provide a variety of exorcisms to help your loved one deny Satan himself. This too is actually based on truth. Some places, as I'm laughing a little bit because it seems so ridiculous to me, but it's actually quite horrific. They actually perform exorcisms, like the movie The Exorcism, to remove the homosexuality from somebody. Which, again, it's ridiculous to me, but it's quite horrific when you realize that this is actually happening to people. And at the end of both of those, you have the Bible. So it says, "This is the Bible. I wish I could just paint it over." Not a fan of the Bible, this guy. Neither am I, but I think that's beside the point. So we now have our key for the locker and our what are they called? Batteries. So let's move back in. So we can start with the locker puzzle. This is I can just walk through what I should have done and what I didn't do here. So if we go over to the locker, that's going to take a second. What I should have done is we have a key and there's a locker. It should open. That would make sense. Key, locker, open. It doesn't. Instead, it gives a sound off that sounds like somebody spray painting something. So if I go in and I choose the key, it just says what happened. That was a bit of a missed opportunity on my part. I'll be honest. I should have done something different there, but I didn't. A lot of this was based on time. I just simply didn't have the time for it. So you can see here, if I go in and I actually look at, now it says faggot over where Daniel's locker used to be. And if I open that, it says, this is Daniel's locker. His code was X8XX. So you have this key situation here where you get part of it. So for the bathroom, it's going to be X8XX. So we now know one of the numbers for that code. So let's move on. Let's go into the biology classroom. As we go into the biology classroom, we again can see our protagonist talk a bit about it. I was never any good at biology. Look at this stuff. What even is it? It says the thus stuff. Some minor spelling errors. Again, this was made very quickly. So here we have some paint. If for those of you who are a bit observant, we know where to use that paint. So we can go in and see here we have another one of those books from the Shaky Pines Conversion Center. So it says, call us. If you or someone you love are struggling with unnatural urges, then please allow us to help. Call us at XXX3. So now we know that it is X8X3, our code. So here we also have a projector. And if I try and turn that on, it just says, I think this needs a battery. So let's go in and give it a battery. And there we are. Awesome, it works. So you can see our code is upside down, what's it called? Upside down cross, eye of Ra, skull, and dead fish. It should be said that there is no actual symbolism in these symbols that I made. It's not like I thought, oh, I need something that has something to do with homosexuality. I just needed something that was vaguely creepy. So, let's move on. So as we move back, and we move our way towards the hallway again, when we open the door, we get to one of the four major narrative events in the game. So you'll see that we're no longer in the hallway, we are now in what appears to be a living room, where over the couch it says, no son of mine. And we have a book, so let's see what the book says. Note from Dad. My son's been acting different lately. He's more aware, seems happier. I think he might have found a girlfriend. I remember my first love. Damn, she was pretty. Is there anything as sweet as young love? Then it goes into, note from Dad. Not a girlfriend. Not a girlfriend at all. I caught the two of them in the backyard the other day. They were sitting close and cuddling. This is just wrong. I've been taking this kid to church for years. He should know better. So, you know, homophobia. And lastly, note from Dad. No child of mine is going to be a goddamn fudge packer. I didn't raise no faggot. This is not okay. Not okay at all. We need to nip this in the bud before it gets any worse. I can't handle this alone. Luckily, there are players like Shaky Pines that deal with things like this. So, yeah, he's not into it. Let's put it like that. You'll notice with each of these notes and with each of these narrative rooms, except for the last one, it goes from sugary sweet into death, basically over the 3 notes that are in each room. So we now have 2 of the codes, or 2 of the digits for the code. It was X8, X3. So let's move into the office and try and put in that code. So we move in here, and we walk towards the office, or the computer, and we had the code. It was upside down cross, eye of Ra, skull, and dead fish. So that gives us another digit. So it's now X843. So again, I made that font. Comment below if any of you would want it. I can definitely provide that for you. It is not amazing. I think now might be a good time to just go into exactly why I made the game in the first place. So there is actually an Unsafe Chapter 1, despite what many Let's Players have alluded to. It's on Newgrounds, and I made it in 2016, the end of 2015, beginning of 2016, and it did not turn out well. It's buggy, it's difficult to play. If you can't find your way around the school in the game, it's just not a good game. But I always regretted that game turned out that way, because I had so high hopes for it. There's even a TED Talk with me, I can link that in the description, where I talk about the game. And I always thought that there would be such an interesting game there, but there just never was. So when I played Detention, a South Korean game that recently came out on the Switch, I sort of started to figure out how exactly I'd be able to make a game that lived up to the standards that I wanted to set. So this is very much a proof of concept for what that could be. So let's move on. Here we have another narrative element. So the first one was the dad narrative element. This would be the Daniel narrative element. So you can see on the back on the back wall we have a lot of slurs: faggot, queer, homo, fudge packer, pansy, fairy, gross, dick sucker, Nancy, poof. I had a bit of a hard time finding a lot of gay slurs. There are some that just keep repeating, like faggot and queer. So I had to get a little bit creative with some of them. So, first note from Daniel. Note from Daniel. Why do you have to look so cute? It's really hard to concentrate in class when you look so damn amazing. Sometimes I zone out while staring at you and just think about what it would be like to leave this place together and never look back. Seriously, you could make an effort to be less dreamy. So again, sweet as fucking cotton candy. This is my desk. This is Daniel's desk. So here we have our main character sort of looking at his and Daniel's desks. Next note from Daniel. I don't know about you, but I don't really feel safe here. I was at the gym the other day, and some of the guys cornered me in the locker room. They kept calling me a faggot and telling me how they were going to get me. I managed to escape before anything serious happened, but I'm scared. And lastly, I feel like everyone is staring at us. I can hear people talking about us all around the school. It's never nice. I'm terrified. I feel like an atmosphere is rising at school. The air feels electric, like the last 10 minutes before a thunderstorm. So, shit's going down. Alright, so we have 3 of the digits. It goes X843. So let's get the final one. So I was really proud of this puzzle when I came up with it, but I think that has a bit of the same issue as the locker one, in that there's no instant feedback. It's a bit of an issue. So if we go over to the Bible, so now if you remember, if you go over to the Bible, it'll say, this is the Bible. I wish I could just paint it over. Originally, it actually says, this is the Bible, I hate this book. But people couldn't figure out that the Bible needed to be painted over, so they just keep trying numbers on the final digit until they got the right one. So that was a bit of a bummer. So if I go in here and I pick the paint, you'll have like a splush sound, or a sploosh, or whatever you want to call it, sound. And what happened? Where did the paint go? So if we move on to the back wall, this is similar to the faggot puzzle. We now have our final code. So it goes 2843. Somebody like splooshed this on the wall, but who did? He's alone. Ah. And our final narrative element before the ending of the game. So here you can see we're actually in his room, and on the back wall it says nothing wrong with me. Sort of spray painted nothing wrong with me. So sugary sweet. Well, not a sugary sweet really, but my diary 1 month ago. The pastor at church went off today about the sin of same-sex attraction, which is a crock of shit if you ask me. If I was made in God's image, then he too must have felt this way at some point. At the end of the day, all I know is I've never felt about anyone the way I feel about Daniel. So, sort of sugary sweet. Here he says, home no longer felt safe, not after Dad found out. Sheesh. Alright. My diary. 1 week ago. I don't think I can face much more of this. I don't know why people hate Daniel and me so much, but they really do. Dad and I had a blow-up about it the other day. He wants me to go to a camp where they de-gay people. Yeah. And finally, my diary, 1 day ago. Daniel has become the one good thing in my life. I don't know if I could go on if it weren't for him. He's always so happy, so bright. In spite of everything, he continued to smile, even when people scream at him or push him against the lockers. I love him so much. So, you sort of get the feeling that our main character might be just a touch depressed. He's definitely going through some stuff. And we now have our final digit. So if you go in here, we'll actually be able to finish this. So it was 2, 8, 4, 3. And we can now finish the game. A quick note, there's a reason why none of the codes have the word or have the number 1 in them. There was a problem with the code, so it wouldn't register the number 1, not unless you flip through every number to get back to the number 1. So I just had to make every code not have the number 1 in them. Again, this game was made relatively quickly, so there's a lot of these types of quick fixes in there. So we move in. This is the final scene. So our protagonist all of a sudden remembers everything. So, I remember Dad throwing me in the car. He was taking me to Shaky Pines because of what happened to Daniel. So what happened to Daniel is relatively important within that. We have an already depressed dude. Well, I'll show you later what happened to Daniel. But he's already depressed, mind you. I will say this ending has gotten a lot of flack. I don't know if that's deserved, but the people are not into it because of what happened to Daniel. I couldn't stand it anymore, so I grabbed the wheel and steered us onto oncoming traffic. So he basically drove himself and his dad into oncoming traffic. thinking back, I maybe should have chosen not oncoming traffic, but into a nearby tree or something. Oncoming traffic is a bit stronger than maybe I was intending, because what happened was Daniel was lynched. Oh God, Daniel. So yeah, Daniel did not survive. So that was Unsafe Chapter 2. I worked on this game for just over 5 days, and I had a blast making it. And I'm probably gonna remake Chapter 1, the game from 2016, simply because I think there's something there. I can make something out of that. So yeah, I think that was it for today. Please subscribe to the channel, and I hope to see more of you, and you will definitely see more of me.